The lights shouldn't be on. That was the first thing I thought when I crested the ridge and saw the town glowing below me like an ember that refused to die. Every street lamp, every window, a warm, steady hum of electricity pulsing through a world that had been dark for 3 years. My hands tightened on the wheel. I killed my headlights out of instinct, some deep survival reflex that screamed, "Don't let them see you first." I sat there in the dark for a long time, watching. And then I noticed it. Not a single curtain moved. Not a single shadow passed behind those glowing windows. The town was lit up like a stage, and nothing was alive in sight. If you enjoy dark survival stories and post-apocalyptic mysteries, subscribe to Shadow Archives and turn on notifications for more journeys through the ruins. I sat on that ridge for 40 minutes before I moved. Old habit. You don't walk into anything that looks too good without watching it bleed first. The town sat in a shallow bowl of desert, maybe 2 miles across. A main street, a water tower, clustered neighborhoods fanning out from a central grid. No smoke, no fire damage, no visible collapse. That alone was enough to make my stomach drop. Every town I'd passed through in the last 8 months looked like something had happened to it. This one looked like nothing had, and somehow that was worse. I put the truck in neutral and coasted down the grade with the engine off. Quiet. Slow. Watching. The street lamps were sodium vapor. Old ones, the kind that hum at a frequency you feel in your back teeth. They were all on. I rolled to a stop at the edge of a main street called Harlan Avenue, according to a sign that still had both its letters. Hardware store, diner, post office, a feed and supply with a hand-painted banner that read, "Welcome, Community First." All the windows glowing, all the curtains drawn. My engine ticked in the cooling air. I counted 12 buildings I could see from where I sat. Not one of them showed movement. I cracked my window and listened. The hum of electricity, wind across the desert, and underneath it, very faint, something rhythmic, like breathing, like a crowd of people all exhaling at once. He appeared the way people do when they've been watching you. Not moving toward you, just suddenly there. Like he'd always been sitting in that chair and you just failed to notice him. Older. 60s, maybe? Wearing a clean flannel shirt, which was strange enough to mark him. A shotgun across his knees, aimed at nothing in particular. He raised one hand when I stepped out of the truck. Not a wave, more like a signal. Stop, I see you. Don't do anything stupid. I kept my hands visible. Just passing through, I said. Standard opener. He looked at me for a long moment. Then at the sky, then back at me. "You want to be inside before dark," he said. "It's almost dark now," I said. He nodded slowly. "I know." His name was Warren. He didn't offer a last name, and I didn't ask. He showed me to a side room in what had been a small hardware store. His place now, he said, for the duration. There was a cot, a lantern already burning, a bucket for water. Organized. Deliberate. Someone who had made peace with permanence. I asked how many people were in the town. He said 43. I asked how long the power had been running. He said it never stopped. I sat with that for a moment. "The grid went down nationwide," I said. "Not here," he said. He handed me a bowl of something, beans, dried meat, and sat across from me, watching me eat with an expression I couldn't read. Part hospitality, part assessment, part something else I didn't have a name for yet. Warren gave me the rules before he left me for the night. He delivered them the way someone reads from a document they've memorized. Flat, precise, without apology. No leaving after sundown. No approaching the town boundary after dark. Keep curtains closed between 9 p.m. and 6 a.m. No fires outside. No loud noise after 8. Don't go near the water tower. I wrote them down in my notebook. Every rule a town imposes tells you something about what happened when those rules didn't exist. What happens if someone breaks them? I asked. Warren was already at the door. He turned back. His face in the lamplight was unreadable, but not blank. There was something behind it, something that had already seen the answer to my question. They don't, he said. Not anymore. I counted the curtains I could see from my small window. There were 11 houses visible on this block alone. If Warren was right about 43 people, that meant the town was less than half full. The rest of the houses were empty, or looked empty. I pressed my face close to the glass and tried to see movement in any of the lit windows across the street. Nothing. Just a steady amber glow behind every drawn curtain, identical in brightness and color, as if every house had the same bulb burning at the same wattage. I pulled out my recorder and spoke quietly into it. Arrived in what looks like Caldera, Nevada. No signs outside town, but maps suggest it. Population 43 per my host. Power active. Source unknown. First rule, don't be outside after dark. I don't know what that means yet. Morning came gray and dry. Warren was already in the main store when I woke, restacking shelves with quiet precision. A woman brought bread. Actual bread, not hardtack. Still warm. She introduced herself as Delia. 30s, dark hair, careful eyes. She smiled the way you smile when you've practiced at it. The bread was good. I ate it slowly, watching her watch me. Outside, through the front windows, I could see people moving on Harlan Avenue. Walking, talking in pairs. Children, 2 of them, chasing something near the post office. It looked almost normal. That was the thing that made my hands tighten around my coffee mug. I'd been in enough broken places to know normal is a performance. The question was always, who's it for? I found the water tower by walking the town's perimeter after breakfast. It stood at the north end of Caldera, between the last house and the desert, behind a chain-link fence with newer padlocks. Not rusted, not weathered. Recent. The tower itself was standard, painted gray, probably 60 feet tall. But at its base, there was something else. A low concrete structure, maybe 20 feet square. No windows, single steel door. Conduit ran from the structure underground toward the center of town. Heavy gauge, the kind used for high-capacity electrical work. A generator housing, maybe. But I didn't hear a generator. No diesel smell, no vibration in the ground. Just a low, steady hum that seemed to come from everywhere at once, like the town itself was breathing. I took photographs with my phone and walked back slowly. She found me on my way back from the water tower. Delia. She'd been watching for me, I realized. She came from the direction I wasn't walking toward, which meant she'd circled around. That kind of thing you notice after long enough on the road. She fell into step beside me without preamble. Warren said you were asking questions, she said. I ask questions everywhere, I said. Keeps me alive. She was quiet for a moment. We walked half a block before she spoke again. Don't go near the tower at night, she said. It wasn't a threat. It was something else. Softer. More personal. Like she was doing me a favor that cost her something. Warren told me that already, I said. She shook her head. I'm not telling you because of Warren. She left me at the corner of Harlan and 3rd, without finishing whatever she'd started. Just a look, direct, measuring, and then she turned and walked back the way she came without another word. I stood there for a moment, watching her go. She walked like someone moving through a space they'd mapped out in their head. Deliberate, practiced. The walk of someone who'd thought hard about where to stand and when to leave. I turned back toward the hardware store and almost walked into a man I hadn't seen coming. Young, 25 maybe. Built. He had a 2-way radio clipped to his belt. He he looked at me the way guards look at strangers, with ownership and calculation and just enough friendliness to be threatening. "You're the traveler," he said. "Warren's guest." I said I was. He nodded. "Council wants to see you." The council met in what had been a community center. Folding chairs arranged in a rough circle, a table at the front where 3 people sat. 2 men, 1 woman, all older, the kind of faces that had earned their wrinkles before the collapse. The young man with the radio, his name was Marcus, I'd learn later, stood near the door. Warren sat in the circle, but not at the table. They asked me the standard questions: where I'd come from, where I was going, what I'd seen on the road. I answered honestly, mostly. When they asked how long I planned to stay, I said a night or 2. The woman at the table, silver-haired, straight-backed, looked at the others and then at me. "We'd encourage you to stay longer," she said. "The road east is dangerous right now." "When isn't it?" I said. She didn't answer. They gave me no reason to stay and no clear permission to leave. That's a particular kind of trap, the kind built from politeness. By the time the meeting ended, afternoon light was stretching long and orange across the street, and Marcus had made it gently but plainly clear that leaving before morning would be inadvisable. So I went back to Warren's and I stayed. I recorded everything I could remember. The council's faces, the way the silver-haired woman, Eleanor, her name was Eleanor, never once looked toward the window during our meeting. The way Warren sat in that circle like a man attending his own trial. The way Marcus watched me leave like he was counting my steps. I lay on the cot and watched the powered bulb above me glow and thought, 43 people, all of them inside before dark, all their curtains drawn, and still, somewhere underneath the hum, that sound, like breathing. I woke at 2 a.m. to silence, and then almost immediately to something that wasn't silence. A sound that took me 30 seconds to identify because my brain kept rejecting it. Footsteps. Dozens of them. Outside, on the street. Slow, unhurried, moving in the same direction. I crossed to the window and pulled the curtain back exactly 1 inch. The street was full of people. Every resident of Caldera, or near enough, walking north on Harlan Avenue in a loose column. No lights except the street lamps. No talking. Children included. That boy and girl I'd seen that morning were there, walking between adults, faces forward. They weren't shuffling or sleepwalking. They moved with purpose, deliberately, like they knew exactly where they were going. Warren was there. Delia was there. Eleanor walked at the front. And every single face was turned toward the mountains. I watched them until they turned the corner at 3rd Street, heading north toward the edge of town. I counted them as they passed. 38, which meant 5 people, including Marcus, I realized, had stayed behind. Watching, maybe? I let the curtain fall and stood in the dark for a long time without moving. Then I did something I knew I probably shouldn't do. I pulled on my jacket, tucked my knife into my belt, and followed. I stayed well back, in doorways, moving between pools of lamplight as quietly as I could. The column moved north with that same unhurried certainty, past the last houses, past the chain-link fence around the water tower, past the end of the road entirely, out into the desert scrub, where there was no path, no light, nothing. Just the mountains 2 miles out, black against a sky full of stars. I stopped at the town's northern edge. Beyond the last fence line, the desert opened up, flat scrub and pale alkali for a 1/4 mile, then rising ground toward the mountain range. I could see the column of Caldera's residents moving into that darkness, spreading out from a column into a loose cluster. Then they stopped. All of them, simultaneously, as if a signal had been given that I hadn't heard. They stood facing the mountains, perfectly still, arms at their sides. 38 people in the Nevada desert at 2 in the morning, not moving, not speaking, staring at a ridge of black rock 2 miles away. I waited. 5 minutes. 10. 20. The only sound was wind and the distant hum. Nothing on the mountain moved. Nothing happened. And yet every face, as best I could see them, was turned upward, like people watching something descend. I was back in my cot by 3:30 a.m. I lay there listening to the town wake up. Footsteps on the porch, the sound of a door, water moving through pipes. By 4, it was quiet again. By 5, birds that had no business surviving had begun to call in the desert scrub outside. I didn't sleep. I lay and thought about what I'd seen and tried to build rational frames around it. Religious ritual? Possible. Psychological mass behavior? Possible. Survivor cult with mountain worship? Possible. But none of those explanations settled the thing that kept surfacing. The children. No adult takes children out into open desert at 2 a.m. unless there's no question of refusal. Unless it isn't optional. I pulled out my recorder. Something happens in this town at night, I said quietly. Something they've agreed to. Or something they can't refuse. She knew. I could see it on her face when she brought bread again that morning. She'd seen me come back. Or Marcus had told her. Or she'd simply read it in the set of my jaw. She set the bread down and poured water and didn't say anything for a long moment. I waited. "How much did you see?" she finally asked. "Enough," I said. She nodded like that was the answer she'd expected and dreaded. She pulled a chair close and sat down, closer than she'd sat before. When she spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper, though the store was empty. "It started 3 years ago," she said, "right after the grid went down everywhere else. The night the lights stayed on here, that was the first night it happened." She told me it the way you tell a story you've told yourself 100 times, without drama, because the drama had already burned out of it. The grid collapsed on a Tuesday in November. Every town in the region went dark. Except Caldera. The lights simply stayed on. No one understood why. Within a week, people from neighboring towns began arriving, drawn to the light. Eleanor organized them. A council formed. Resources were assessed. And then, on the 8th night, half the town's residents, then about 20 people, walked north into the desert without explanation. The other half thought it was a crisis. They tried to stop it. There was a confrontation. Nobody was hurt. And when the walking residents came back at dawn, they remembered nothing specific. Only that they needed to go, and that they felt fine. Better than fine, Delia said. Rested, calm, like they'd slept perfectly. The lights stayed on. "What happened to the people who refused?" I asked. Delia was quiet for a long time, long enough that I thought she wasn't going to answer. 7 people left Caldera in the first year, she said finally. After the walking started. Left or tried to leave? Left, she said. We don't stop people from leaving. We just tell them what happens, what's happened before. She picked up the bread and put it down again. 3 came back within a week. They said the roads were wrong, that they kept feeling like they needed to turn around, like something was pulling them back. And the other 4? She looked at me directly for the first time that morning. We found 2 of them in the desert, about a mile north of town. They died trying to walk toward the mountains, in daylight. She paused. We don't know what happened to the other 2. I asked Warren about Eleanor that afternoon. He was careful in how he answered, which told me plenty. He'd been here before Eleanor, he said, when Caldera was just a dying desert town with maybe 80 permanent residents who'd never quite made peace with modernity. Eleanor had arrived about 6 weeks before the collapse, alone, driving a government vehicle he'd assumed was some kind of federal survey work. She'd stayed in the motel, been quiet, kept to herself. When the collapse hit and the lights stayed on, she'd stepped forward, organized everything. She wasn't elected so much as assumed. She knew things, Warren said. Practical things. How to set up water rationing, food storage, how to organize work teams. But also, he stopped. He rearranged the items on a shelf that didn't need rearranging. She knew the lights would stay on, he said. Before they did. I found the vehicle the next morning, behind the community center, parked under a rusted corrugated awning, partially covered with a canvas tarp. I lifted the tarp. Black SUV. Federal plates. Nevada. Government series. The emblem on the door had been scraped off, but I could see the ghost of it in the paint. A circle with something in the center, partially removed. I tried to make it out. Circular shape, radiating lines. Could have been a dozen agencies. Could have been a sun. Could have been something else. The windows were intact, locked. I pressed my face to the glass and looked inside. Standard rear cargo setup, but modified. Metal racks welded to the floor. Heavy-duty brackets still holding the outlines of equipment no longer there. Measurement devices maybe? Sensors? Or something else. Someone had removed everything carefully and thoroughly. But they'd left one thing. A laminated badge on the passenger seat, face down. The door was unlocked. I hadn't expected that. I'd been about to try a Slim Jim on the handle, but the latch gave on the first pull. Inside the SUV smelled of dust and something faintly chemical, like instrument calibration fluid. I reached in and turned the badge over. It was a standard federal photo ID. Eleanor's face. Younger, maybe 10 years, but unmistakably her. Name, Dr. Eleanor Voss. Below that, a department designation that had been deliberately scratched out with something sharp. Below that, a project code. Project Caldera. I took a photograph of the badge with my phone. Then I set it back exactly face down, exactly where it had been, and closed the door and walked away unhurriedly. My heart was moving at a controlled sprint. She hadn't come here because of the collapse. She'd come here because of what she knew was coming. Everything. And nothing. Yet. I walked back to Warren's and sat on my cot and let the implications stack up. Eleanor Voss. A federal project named after this town. An arrival timed precisely before the collapse. Equipment removed from a vehicle that had been left here, either forgotten or abandoned on purpose. A town with impossible electricity. A population that walked silently into the desert at 2 a.m. 7 people who tried to leave and 4 who'd never come back. The shape of it was forming, but I didn't have the center yet. I could see the walls of a room, but not what was inside. What I knew for certain, this wasn't a survivor town that got lucky with its power grid. This was something that had been prepared. The collapse hadn't found Caldera. Caldera had been ready for the collapse. Maybe it had even been part of it. I had to decide how much to tell Delia. She was the only person here who seemed to exist partially outside of whatever was happening. Not immune to it, but aware of it in a way the others didn't seem to be. Or willing to talk about it, which wasn't the same thing. I found her in the diner that evening. Still functioning. She worked it 3 times a week with 2 other women. I sat at the counter and ordered coffee. Real coffee. Another impossibility I'd stopped questioning. And when she slid the mug over, I said quietly, "Eleanor Voss, Project Caldera. What do you know?" The mug settled on the counter without any drama. She'd been waiting for that sentence, I realized. Maybe for weeks. Maybe since the day I'd arrived. She looked at me for a long moment. Then she looked around the diner. "Not here," she said. "Not tonight. Come to me tomorrow. Early." I almost didn't watch again. Almost. But at 2 a.m., the footsteps came again. That same unhurried rhythm on the street outside, and I was at the curtain before I'd made a conscious decision to be. They were all there again. The The same column moving north, the same blank forward faces. And this time I noticed something I'd missed the first night. They were dressed the same as when they'd gone to bed. Pajamas, sleepwear, a woman in a bathrobe, the boy in his underwear and a winter coat someone had draped over his shoulders without waking him. As if they hadn't chosen to get up. As if they'd simply risen and begun walking without the intermediate step of consciousness. Warren passed my window wearing a flannel and work socks with no shoes. His eyes were open. His face was forward. And his expression was completely, utterly at peace. She met me at dawn in the small house 2 blocks from Warren's that she'd claimed. A real house. Living room, kitchen, the remnants of someone else's life still visible in the decor she hadn't bothered to change. She had coffee and she had documents. A file folder, worn at the edges, the kind you'd find in a government office. She set it on the table between us. I worked for the county, she said. Before. Administrative. When Eleanor arrived, she needed someone to help with paperwork, registering residents, organizing resources. She gave me access to things I don't think she meant me to keep. Inside the folder, printed emails, internal communications, not Eleanor's name, a designation, Project Lead CV7, references to a location designated Site Caldera, references to something called Signal Echo, and one phrase that appeared in 3 separate documents, always in capital letters, Anchor Population. I read every document in that folder twice. The language was bureaucratic and careful, the kind of writing that says things without technically saying them. But the shape of it was clear enough. Project Caldera was a federal program, predating the collapse by at least 4 years. Its stated purpose was population anchoring in high signal density environments. There were references to resonance infrastructure installed at the site, references to a behavioral compliance mechanism that was described as passive and non-harmful, references to test results from pre-collapse anchor trials at 3 other sites, all designated by name, towns I didn't recognize, but towns, not facilities. The program had expected the collapse, had planned for it, and Site Caldera had been selected specifically for its geological and atmospheric alignment with signal echo parameters. I looked up at Delia. What is signal echo? She shook her head. I don't know, but the water tower isn't a water tower. I went back to the water tower that afternoon, alone. In daylight, I studied the fence more carefully. The padlocks were both combination style, relatively new. The concrete structure at the base had no external markings, not even a utility stamp or manufacturer plate, which is unusual enough to be deliberate. The conduit running underground was sealed at both ends where it emerged from the building. I walked the perimeter of the fence twice. On the north side, partially concealed by the fence post, I found something I'd missed before. A ventilation grate, low to the ground, built into the concrete foundation. And through that grate came a sound. Not a generator, not fans. A tone. Low, almost subsonic. Steady, completely without variation. The kind of frequency you feel in your chest before you consciously hear it. I crouched there for a long time with my ear near the grate. And slowly, so slowly I almost didn't notice, I felt calmer, better, almost peaceful. I stood up fast and walked away. 50 feet, sat on the ground, waited for the feeling to dissipate. It took about 3 minutes. The calm evaporated like mist, and underneath it, the anxiety I always carried came back, and this time it felt like relief. I pulled out my recorder with slightly shaking hands. The structure at the base of the tower is generating some kind of low-frequency signal. Infrasound, maybe? A subsonic tone. Consistent. Very low. I was exposed for maybe 90 seconds, and I felt... I stopped. I tried to describe it accurately. I felt the way I imagine someone feels after a good night's sleep. completely rested. No fear, no urgency, which is not my baseline. I clicked the recorder off and thought about 38 people walking peacefully into the desert at 2 a.m., about Warren's face through the window, that absolute untroubled calm, about a document that called this population anchored. Marcus found me walking back from the tower. Of course he did. He appeared from the direction of the community center. I'd learn later he did regular perimeter checks, and he fell into step beside me with the ease of someone who decided to be friendly and was going to commit to it. "Checking out the infrastructure?" he said. "No edge in it, just conversation." "Curious about the power source," I said. "We all are," he said, which surprised me. "Eleanor handles most of that. Rest of us just enjoy having lights." He said it without apparent irony. "How long have you been here?" I asked. "Since the 3rd week," he said. "My family's place is about 40 miles east. Nothing left. Drove in on fumes." He paused. "Good place," he said. "Safe. People look out for each other." He said it like a man reciting something true that he hadn't arrived at himself. "You go out every night?" I asked. "What?" "The walks. North. You go?" He looked at me, expression shifting. "No," he said. "I don't go." So Marcus didn't go. That accounted for the 5 who stayed behind when the others walked north. He was one of them. I spent the rest of the afternoon quietly mapping the town, walking its streets with the excuse of stretching my legs, noting which houses had residents and which were empty, watching who moved where. Caldera had, by my count, 43 residents in 31 occupied houses. The 22 houses that were empty had been abandoned, some before the collapse, some after. I noticed something else. The 5 who didn't walk at night were all relative newcomers. Marcus had arrived in week 3. 2 others I'd observed, a quiet man named Gil and a heavyset woman named Rosie, had each arrived in the last 8 months. The 2 remaining I hadn't identified yet. Everyone who'd been here from the beginning walked north at 2 a.m. The newer residents didn't. Not yet. I tested the theory that evening. At dinner in the diner, I counted how long people had been in Caldera as carefully as I could, from conversations, from casual questions, from what Delia had told me. The pattern held. Everyone who'd arrived in the first month, the founding 40 or so, walked north at night. Those who'd arrived later did not. But here was the thing that tightened something in my chest. Gil had arrived 8 months ago, and Delia told me, quietly, watching my face as she said it, that he'd started going last month. Just once, then twice, now every night. "There's a threshold," I said. "How long you're here, how long you're exposed." She didn't answer. "Delia, how long have you been here?" She was quiet for a long moment. She looked down at the counter. 14 months, she said. I put my coffee down. "Do you go?" She went. She'd been going for 3 months. She didn't remember the walks. She remembered going to bed, and she remembered waking up. And between those 2 points, there was nothing. No dream, no sensation of movement, no experience whatsoever. Just a gap. But she found evidence in the mornings. Sand in her bed, on her socks. A slight ache in her feet on certain mornings. Once, a cut on her palm she couldn't explain. She went because she had no choice. Or more precisely, she woke up having gone. "But you still know," I said. "You still understand what's happening. You showed me the files." She nodded slowly. "The signal doesn't take your mind," she said. "Not your thinking. Just your nights." She paused. "I think it's building something. Using the people. Using the walks. I just don't know what it's building toward." I looked at my coffee, long cold. "How long have I been here?" I said. 4 days, she said. "You're fine." She said it very carefully. for now.
4 days. I did the math. The newcomers started going at some point between 8 months and 14 months, likely somewhere in that range, which meant I had time, maybe 7 months minimum if I was lucky, or I had no time at all if my math was wrong, or if Eleanor knew about me and could accelerate the process somehow, or if 4 days was already enough to begin whatever the signal was starting. I went back to my cot and lay in the dark and thought about every post-collapse community I'd passed through. The ones that were obviously dangerous, the armed militias, the cult compounds, the territorial warlords. You could see those threats. You could calculate distances and numbers and odds. This was different. This was something that worked on you invisibly from beneath while you slept. Something that left you rested and calm and empty of yourself. I decided I needed to be gone in 48 hours. Then I decided I needed answers first. Then I lay there arguing with myself until dawn. I went back to the tower that night, 1 a.m., before the walking started. I had bolt cutters from Warren's supply shelf that I'd palmed 2 days ago and kept in my bag on the hope I'd need them. The padlocks took longer than they should have. The steel was harder than expected. Better quality than anything else in this town. It took 8 minutes and sweat in the cold desert air to get through the first one. The second was different. It fell open when I applied pressure. Already unlocked. The gate swung open silently. Well-maintained hinges. I crossed to the concrete structure. The steel door had a keypad. I wasn't going to crack that, but I didn't need to. The ventilation grate in the foundation was bolted. Not locked. 4 bolts, flathead. I had a screwdriver. The grate swung down. The tone from inside hit me like warm water. I counted slowly to 5. Then I put in the foam earplugs I'd brought and climbed inside. The earplugs helped. Not perfectly. Infrasound bypasses the ear, moves through bone and tissue, but enough. I dropped into a crawl space, then a short corridor, then a room I hadn't been able to imagine from outside. It was bigger than the structure's exterior suggested, which meant it extended underground. A server room, essentially. Racks of equipment running cool and silent, indicator lights blinking, the floor vibrating faintly beneath my boots. I swept my flashlight across it. Standard-looking hardware in some places. In others, equipment I'd never seen. Custom fabrication, the kind that doesn't ship in retail boxes. In the center of the room, mounted in a steel frame bolted to the floor, a cylindrical device, about 4 feet tall, matte black, with a speaker array at its crown, pointing upward. From this, the tone. Steady, warm, constant. Almost beautiful. I kept my distance and breathed through my mouth and photographed everything. Against the far wall, monitors. 6 of them. Still powered, still running. I approached carefully. 4 showed data. Graphs, readout streams, numbers scrolling continuously. 1 showed a topographic map of the region with Caldera at the center and radiating circles extending outward, each labeled with a signal strength value. The outermost circle was labeled 2.3 km, which matched roughly the distance to the ridge where I'd first seen the town. The 6th monitor showed something else entirely. A live camera feed. From above, drone or fixed camera, I couldn't tell. It showed the desert north of town. And moving across it, the residents of Caldera. Walking north, spread wide, all facing the mountains. 38 small figures moving together in perfect silence. The timestamp on the feed read 2:04 a.m. They'd already started. I was underground in a signal-generating facility while the entire town walked over my head. There was a terminal. Standard keyboard, older interface, but running. The screen had a login prompt, but the session was still active. Whoever monitored this last had left it open. I didn't ask myself why. I pulled up the file directory and photographed it. Project Caldera. Signal Echo Protocol. CV7 Operations Log. Anchor Population Metrics. I opened the metrics file. 43 names in a spreadsheet, each with a number beside it, a decimal value ranging from 0.12 to 1.00. The ones who'd been here longest had values closest to 1.00. The ones at 1.00, 6 people, including Warren, including Eleanor, had a notation beside their values. Calibrated. The others ranged downward. Delia was at 0.71. The newer residents were at 0.08 to 0.15. And there at the bottom of the list, added recently, Cross, E, transient, value 0.00, assessment, monitor. I kept that word in my head on the way back out. Calibrated. 6 people at 1.0. Eleanor, Warren, 4 others. What did it mean to be fully calibrated? Fully compliant? Fully changed? Or just fully attuned, the way an instrument is calibrated to read accurately? I didn't know. But I knew that Eleanor had been here before the collapse, before the signal started, which meant she'd been calibrated differently. Or she'd calibrated herself. She'd set it up. She knew what it did. She'd chosen it. I climbed back out through the ventilation grate and replaced the bolts as best I could by feel. The second padlock was still unlocked. I left it. I walked back to the hardware store through cold desert air, moving fast, earplugs out, the night ringing with absence where the tone usually was. And I thought, 6 fully calibrated people in a town of 43. 6 people who no longer needed to be pushed, who walked north because they wanted to. I woke at 7 to a knock on the hardware store door. Not Warren, not Delia. Eleanor. She was alone. She was dressed neatly, the same quiet authority she carried everywhere. She sat in the chair across from my cot without being invited, crossed her legs, and looked at me with an expression that was neither hostile nor apologetic. "You were in the facility last night," she said. Not a question. "The second padlock was already open," I said. She nodded, almost imperceptibly. "I wanted you to be able to get in," she said. "If you were who I thought you were." I waited. "Someone who asks real questions," she said. "Someone who doesn't stop at the surface." She tilted her head slightly. "I've been waiting for someone like you to come through. It's been a long time." I kept my face neutral. "What do you want?" She looked at me for a long moment. "I want you to understand," she said. "All of it. Before you leave." She told me the way a scientist tells you, systematically, without sentimentality. Signal echo wasn't invented. It was discovered. In 2019, during geological survey work in this area, federal monitoring equipment detected an existing subsonic frequency emanating from deep within the mountain range to the north. Natural, piezoelectric, she thought, generated by specific crystal formations under tectonic stress. The frequency matched, almost precisely, a range that had been studied for decades in fringe neuroscience circles. Frequencies that, at sustained low exposure, produced states of deep calm, cooperative behavior, reduced aggression, and, at higher exposure over time, a form of somnambulant compliance. The mountains were doing it naturally, she said. We just amplified it, focused it, stabilized the dose. She said we, and didn't expand on who we was. "You built a machine to do what the mountains were already doing?" I said. "We built a machine," she said, "to make sure it was enough." "Why?" I said. She looked at me like she'd been waiting for exactly that word. "Because what came after the collapse was always going to be worse than the collapse," she said. "We modeled it, every scenario. Without an organizing principle, survivor populations regress to tribalism within 6 months. Tribalism becomes warfare within 12. Armed conflict over resources eliminates 60 to 70% of remaining population within 3 years." She paused. "We needed anchor populations, communities that stayed together, that didn't fragment, that didn't fight."
So you sedated them, I said. We stabilized them, she said. The word sharp. Then softer. I know what it sounds like. I know how it looks to someone coming in from outside. But Ethan? And she said my name for the first time. And I understood then that she'd known it before I'd told anyone here what it was. Come to the community center tonight. I want to show you the survival data.
She wasn't wrong about the survival rates. In the community center that evening, she showed me the data on a laptop running off the facility's power. Comparative metrics from her team's monitoring of other survivor communities across the Southwest. Armed towns, average survival rate after 3 years, 31%. Unorganized camps, 19%. Cult-structured groups, 44%, but with high internal violence. Caldera, anchored by the signal for 3 years, 91%. 43 residents, 0 violent deaths, 0 internal conflict, stable food and resource management, maintained infrastructure, no intercommunity warfare. She let me sit with the numbers. She wasn't wrong. The 43 people in this town had survived at a rate that should have been impossible. They were alive because of the signal, because of the calm it produced, because of Eleanor's machine. The problem was, they hadn't chosen it. None of them had ever been asked.
They didn't choose this, I said. She sat down. No, she said. We discussed that early on, extensively. She didn't look away. The calculus was, if we asked and they refused, they died. Not here, somewhere else, in the chaos, in the conflict. Our models showed clear outcomes. The signal was the difference between survival and not. You made that decision for them? Yes. Every one of them? Yes. I sat back. Warren, I said. Delia. The children. Yes. She said it each time like she was taking the weight of it, not deflecting it. I'd met people who'd done terrible things and built elaborate justifications. Eleanor wasn't doing that. She knew exactly what she'd done. She'd weighed it and chosen it, and she was still choosing it. That was somehow more disturbing than a justification would have been. What are they doing at night, I said, when they walk north? She was quiet for a moment. That, she said, I didn't plan.
The nighttime walks began 6 months after the facility went active. No one in Eleanor's original program had predicted them. She'd reviewed the signal parameters, the exposure data, everything, and found no mechanism that should produce somnambulant behavior. The signal was designed to reduce aggression and promote calm, not to cause coordinated sleepwalking, not to cause anything collective. The residents started walking north on their own, she said, without instruction, without any new signal, just on their own, every night. What are they walking toward? The source, she said, the natural frequency in the mountains. I think... She stopped. This was the first time I'd seen her stop. She looked at the table. I think the amplified signal has created a feedback loop. The population has been exposed long enough that they're now drawn to the original source, like tuning forks. They resonate with it. And you don't know what that does to them. I don't know what it's building toward, she said. I set an alarm for 1:30 a.m. and made it to the desert's north edge before the column emerged. I found a position about 100 yards out, lying flat in the scrub with my binoculars, watching the town's residents file out of the boundary and spread into the dark. 38 of them again. Same loose formation, same direction. I'd brought my phone with the signal recording app I'd been using since Kansas to document broadcasts. I aimed it at the mountains and let it run. After 20 minutes, I had what I needed. I played it back through the small earpiece, embedded in the low background noise, barely distinguishable from geological static, a tone, the same frequency as the facility, but different, older, more complex, not a simple sine wave, more like music almost, or like a language,
like something that had developed over thousands of years in the rock and was now finally being heard by the right kind of receivers. I lay in the desert scrub and felt the hair on my arms stand up.
I confronted Eleanor the next morning. Not about the signal, about the people in the desert, about what she wasn't saying. You know what the mountain frequency does, I said. You've analyzed it. You didn't build a facility next to an unexplained geological phenomenon without studying it completely. She didn't deny it. We had theories, she said, early on, before the collapse. And prolonged exposure to the natural frequency in animals produced behavioral convergence, she said. Animals in the signal range displayed synchronized movement patterns, collective behavior that didn't exhibit outside the range. She paused. We observed it in 3 mammal species in the region before the program began. I set down my coffee. You built a human population on top of a frequency that you'd already seen cause collective behavior in animals? We'd established, she said, carefully, that the signal was stable, that it didn't harm subjects. Being turned into a tuning fork isn't harm? She didn't answer. I found Warren at his workbench that afternoon. He was repairing a hand tool, methodical, careful, completely present. I sat down across from him and asked him directly, "Do you know what you do at night?" He put the tool down. He looked at his hands for a long moment. Then he looked at me. "Some of it," he said. "I wake up sometimes, part way, in the desert, standing still, and I can feel it, the frequency from the mountains. It's like..." He searched for the right word. "It's like being in a crowd that's all thinking the same thing, but bigger, older than any crowd." He picked the tool up again. "It doesn't hurt," he said. "I wake up feeling fine." "Warren, it's not your choice." He turned the tool over in his hands. "Whose choice is what we survive?" he said. "I've thought about that a lot." He set it down again. "The people who left?" He stopped. 2 of them died in the desert. Not walking toward the mountains, walking away from them. At night, in the wrong direction. 2 people had died walking away from the mountains, in the desert, at night. The signal, the mountain's frequency, had apparently become strong enough in calibrated residents to redirect them if they tried to leave its range, like a magnetic pull, like north for a compass. I walked north of town again that afternoon, in daylight, and went further than I had before, a 1/4 mile past where I'd watched them gather. The ground here was different, hard-packed alkali crust, almost white, bisected by shallow drainage channels that were dry this time of year. And here and there, at intervals I couldn't find a pattern for, cairns, small ones, 3 or 4 rocks stacked, deliberate, not natural. Someone had marked this area systematically. I photographed each one and noted its GPS position from my phone. 13 cairns in the area I covered. And at the base of the last one, pressed under the bottom stone, a small laminated card, the same federal seal as Eleanor's badge, had written in marker, "Anchor active. Do not approach unless authorized." I went back to Eleanor with the card. I laid it on the table in front of her. She looked at it for a long time without speaking. "This was here before the program began," I said. "This was planned. The residents gathering here, this wasn't a side effect. This was the design." She closed her eyes briefly. "The anchor population metrics include a behavioral convergence phase," she said. "Yes, it was in the design." "You lied. You said you didn't know what it was building toward." "I said I didn't know what it would do to them," she said. "That's different. The design called for convergence. What that means for the individual, for the mind, that I don't know." "What does the design say convergence is for?" She was quiet for a long time, long enough that I knew what the silence meant. There was something beyond this stage, something the convergence was building toward, that she either didn't know or wouldn't say. "Eleanor,
She looked at me. What comes next? She looked away.
She told me in pieces, the way you tell someone something that sounds insane, measuring their face at each piece before giving the next. The convergence phase, the nightly walks, would continue and intensify until the population's collective resonance reached a threshold value. She showed me the metric spreadsheet again, the decimal values beside each name. Average current value across the population was 0.68. The threshold was 1.00, full calibration. At full collective calibration, the mountain frequency and the amplified facility signal would create a resonance event. What kind of event? She turned the laptop toward me. A modeling simulation. A graphic of signal waves combining, amplifying, radiating outward from Caldera. The outermost projected range on the simulation? 300 miles. At full resonance, Eleanor said, the anchor signal propagates outward. Every person within range experiences the stabilization effect, simultaneously. I stared at the screen. 300 miles from Caldera covered most of the southwest. You're not anchoring a town, I said. You're charging a battery. What happens to the 43? I said. She didn't answer immediately. Eleanor, what happens to the anchor population when the signal propagates at full resonance? She sat down. Slowly. The way someone sits down when they've been standing for years and finally don't have the weight to hold. The models suggest full calibration is terminal, she said. At threshold resonance, the biological exposure is... She stopped. Started again. They don't survive the event. I sat very still. All of them? All of them, she said. The anchor population is consumed by the resonance event. That's the cost of propagation. She looked up at me. Her eyes were dry and direct. 300 miles of stabilized survivors, she said, versus 43. You're going to kill everyone in this town to calm down the rest of the Southwest. We calculated. They don't know, I said. Not one of them knows that. She was quiet for a very long time. No, she said. They don't. I went back to Warren's and I sat on my cot and I did not record anything for the first time in months. Sometimes the thing you're looking at can't be filed, can't be narrated. You just have to sit with it until it becomes real. 43 people, walking north every night, contributing their neurology to a signal that would kill them when it reached its peak. Living in peace and cooperation and stability, with their curtains drawn and their lights on and their children fed, not knowing that the warmth they felt wasn't just survival, it was preparation. I thought about the two who died walking away. I thought about Warren at his workbench, making peace with things. I thought about the boy in his winter coat, walking in his sleep. I thought about Delia, who knew more than the others and still went out every night and still woke up with sand in her bed. And I thought, what do I do? I had 48 hours before I'd originally planned to leave. Maybe less now. I told her everything. I owed her that at least. She sat at her kitchen table and listened without interrupting, which told me she was the kind of person who understood that some information requires uninterrupted space to land. When I finished, she was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "How long?" "Until full calibration?" Eleanor doesn't know exactly. Current average is 0.68. At the rate of increase she showed me, maybe another 8 to 12 months. Delia nodded slowly. So we have time. To do what? She looked at me. To get people out. To dismantle the facility. She stopped. Can the signal be reversed? Eleanor would know, I said. And Eleanor won't help us. You don't know that. Delia. She met my eyes.
She built this. She chose this. The people who designed this program knew it was terminal from the beginning. Delia was quiet. Then, she's calibrated too. 1.00. Full. I thought about that. So she'd die in the event as well, I said. Delia nodded. Maybe that's what she calls paying the cost, she said softly.
Marcus came to Warren's at 8 that night. I opened the door. He stood on the porch with his radio in his hand and his expression between its two registers, the controlled friendliness and the assessment beneath it. "Eleanor wants to see you," he said. "Now." I read his face. He didn't know everything. I was certain of that. He was a tool, not a planner. He did what he was told. "All right," I said. "Warren around?" I said it casually. "He's at the community center already," Marcus said. The way he said it was wrong. Just slightly. Just enough. Warren was at the community center, being kept where Eleanor could see him, because Eleanor knew I'd talked to Warren. She was consolidating, moving her pieces. I followed Marcus out into the lamplight and decided that whatever happened in the next hour, I was leaving Caldera before sunrise.
Eleanor was there with Warren and two others from the founding group, a man named Horace and a woman I'd seen but never spoken to, named Clara. Warren sat in the folding chair circle with his hands on his knees. He looked at me when I came in with an expression I read as apology. He'd told them something, or been asked, or didn't have the capacity to not tell them anymore. 1.0 calibration, fully attuned, no secrets from the source. Eleanor stood at the front, composed. "I want to be clear," she said when I sat down, "that I don't intend to keep you here against your will." It sounded like the first line of something terrible. "Ethan," she said, "you've seen what we've built. You understand what it's for. I want you to consider staying." "Why?" I said. "Because you're not in range of another facility," she said. "The nearest anchor site to the east is outside Phoenix. There's nothing between here and there for 300 miles. She let that sit. "You could help people," she said, "if you understood the system, if you worked with it."
She offered me a role. Researcher, documentarian, someone who could move between Caldera and the outside, spreading information about the program, identifying candidates for anchor population recruitment, building a network that would accelerate the West Coast sites. There were apparently 3 others in various stages of development. I would have full access to the facility, to the data, to Eleanor herself. I would be outside the signal's terminal range during the convergence event. She said this carefully, watching my face for the response. I would survive. I would help anchor the Southwest. I let her finish. Then I said, "The 43 people in this town are going to die. You want me to help you do the same thing somewhere else?" "I want you to help me save millions of survivors," she said, "by sacrificing hundreds." She didn't answer. "How many sites?" I said, "including this one." She looked at me. 11, she said. At 2 a.m., mid-conversation, something changed in the room. Not a sound, a shift. Warren and Horace and Clara all turned their heads simultaneously, like dogs hearing something outside human range. Then they stood, together, without speaking. Eleanor watched them with what I could only read as tenderness. She looked at me and said simply, "You should stay in tonight. It will be fine." And she stood and joined the others as they moved toward the door. Marcus was already outside, radio in hand. I sat alone in the community center with the lights running and the hum in the walls and the sound of footsteps fading north. I waited 90 seconds. Then I picked up my bag and walked out the back. I didn't run. Running draws attention even when there's no one to see you. It changes your breathing, changes the sound of your steps, changes the way you move through a space. I walked fast. Back to Warren's. My pack was already mostly ready. I'd been packing incrementally for 2 days. I added my notebooks, my phone, my recorder. I added the folder of documents that Delia had let me photograph. I looked around the room for 10 seconds. The powered bulb, the cot, someone else's space, briefly borrowed. I walked out. I went to my truck. The key was where I'd left it, tucked under the wheel well. I got in without starting the engine and let it coast silently to the south end of Harlan Avenue. Then I started it. One fast turn of the key, engine catching, and I drove. I hit the highway with my lights still off and drove by starlight for the first quarter mile. Then I turned them on. The road stretched south into flat desert, 2 lanes, broken center line. I drove hard. My speedometer hit 60 and I didn't back off. The rear view showed Caldera receding, just light now, warm in the dark. I'd driven maybe 3 miles when I saw the headlights behind me. One set, moving fast. Marcus. Of course Marcus. I pressed the accelerator. The truck was old, but the engine was rebuilt. A mechanic outside Reno 2 years ago had done good work. I hit 80. The lights behind me kept pace. The road ahead was straight and flat for as far as I could see. I held 80 and breathed through my nose and thought about the 11 sights and the 43 people walking north in the desert behind me and the boy in his winter coat asleep on his feet and what I was going to do about any of it. The pursuing vehicle fell back after 8 miles. Just dropped speed and let the gap widen. Then the lights swung around and headed back toward Caldera. I drove another 5 miles before I slowed, breathing hard. I hadn't realized how tightly I'd been gripping the wheel. My hands ached. I pulled off onto a dirt track and killed the lights and waited 15 minutes. Nothing. Then my phone buzzed. A single text from a number I'd given Delia at the diner. One line. I can't leave. I tried. I turned around at the edge of town. I couldn't make myself keep going. I sat with that for a long time. She'd known. She'd told me herself. 14 months, 0.71 calibration. Enough that the pull was physical now. Enough that her own neurology had overridden her decision to leave. She was trapped. She knew she was trapped. And she was still in there, mind intact, watching herself be unable to go. I drove south through the rest of the night without stopping. Put 70 miles between me and Caldera before the sky began to lighten. I pulled off at an abandoned gas station outside a town that no longer existed and sat on the hood of my truck with my recorder and talked through everything I'd seen and heard and understood. It took 2 hours. I went through it systematically because that's the only way to handle something this size. Not as a whole, which is overwhelming, but piece by piece. When I finished, I had an inventory. The badge, the documents, the photographs of the facility, the recording of the mountain frequency, the names of 11 sites, and the understanding that somewhere in the Southwest, 10 other Caldera-scale programs were running. 10 other towns where people were being stabilized and anchored and slowly calibrated toward a terminal convergence event that would kill them and stabilize everyone within 300 miles. I had all of it, and I had no idea what to do with it. Here's the thing about a secret that size. It demands something of you. You can't unknow it. You can carry it silently, drive away and document it and tell yourself it's not your problem, which it isn't, technically. Or you can try to act on it, which means deciding what acting looks like when the people who built the system are federal agents, and the system is spread across 11 sites, and the people it's designed to save outnumber the people it's designed to sacrifice by factors of millions. I wasn't a soldier. I wasn't an activist. I wasn't anything with official standing. I was a man in a truck with a recorder and a notebook and whatever was left of a conscience after 3 years of collapse. I drove south and thought about it, about Delia's text, about Warren making peace, about the boy in his winter coat, about Eleanor, fully calibrated, walking north every night toward the machine she'd built to kill herself,
I thought about that last part for a long time.
She believed in it. That was the hardest part. I'd met true believers before. Cult leaders, warlords, survival prophets of every stripe. And they all had something in common. The self-interest underneath the ideology. Visible once you knew to look for it. Eleanor didn't have that. She'd calibrated herself to 1.00. She'd be among the dead when the convergence event fired. She had no escape. She'd built a machine that would kill her along with everyone else she'd gathered, in service of stabilizing a region she'd never survived to see. She believed the math. Millions stabilized versus hundreds sacrificed. She'd decided it was correct, and then she'd gotten inside the machine herself to make it work. I didn't agree with her. I wasn't sure I would ever agree with her. But I understood, for the first time, that she wasn't a monster performing a calculation. She was a person who'd made a terrible choice and was paying for it in the only currency that mattered, her own life. I played the recording again. The mountain frequency. The natural signal from the crystal formations under the range north of Caldera. I'd been listening to it through my earpiece off and on for an hour. At low volume, through the earpiece, filtered by the recording process, it was different from the direct exposure. No calm. No peace, just a sound, complex, variable, almost harmonic, like a chord played at the edge of hearing by an instrument made of stone. I'd been exposed to the facility's amplified version for 6 days total. By Eleanor's own metrics, I was at 0.00. Her spreadsheet had said so. But her spreadsheet had also been wrong about the convergence phase being unplanned. So I pulled over and sat by the road and thought hard about whether the calm I'd felt near the tower grate, those 90 seconds of earplugs in exposure, had done something the numbers didn't show. I felt normal, alert, afraid a little. That last part reassured me. The signal, as designed, reduced fear. If I was still afraid, I wasn't calibrated yet. I drove into Phoenix's outskirts 4 days later, or what was left of Phoenix. The city had been large enough before the collapse that its ruins were a different kind of spectacle. Not a small town's quiet decay, but a vast structural failure. Freeway overpasses standing dark, strip malls stripped, residential grids largely intact but empty in the outer rings, contested and fortified in the inner ones. I'd been through here before, a year ago. Things had changed. Less open violence. More order. The kind that comes from exhaustion rather than authority. I went looking for the Phoenix anchor site. Eleanor had said it existed. She hadn't given me a location, but she hadn't needed to. You looked for the same signs. Power in a grid that should be dark. A water tower with a concrete annex. Residents who closed their curtains at 9 p.m. And at the right hour, people walking north. In Phoenix's case, north meant the Sonoran foothills. I found the town in 3 days. Mesa Verde, they called it. Not its original name, a new one given by the community. Population, 61. Power running. All the same signs. I didn't go in. I sat on a hill above the town for 2 nights and confirmed the pattern. The nighttime procession, the mountains, the synchronized silence. Then I drove away. I needed data, not more immersion. I had 11 sites and I needed to map them. I spent the next 3 weeks driving. North to Utah, east to New Mexico, looping back through the Nevada-California border region. I found 4 more sites in that time. Each one slightly different in scale and population, but identical in structure. The facility, the frequency, the nighttime behavior, the curtained windows, the suspicious hospitality. I stopped going inside. I documented from the outside and drove on. Somewhere in the southwest, 10 anchor populations were slowly calibrating toward a threshold they'd never been told about. And somewhere, someone was waiting for the event. I made a map. On paper, the old way, because digital tools felt too fragile for something this important. 6 confirmed sites marked, each with my GPS coordinates,
population estimate, and estimated calibration level based on behavioral observation. I drew the projected resonance circles. At full propagation from all 6 sites simultaneously, the coverage overlapped across most of the Southwest. Some areas received signal from 2 sites. The areas of overlap were darker on my map, which felt right, even though I knew it was just a coincidence of pen pressure. At 11 sites, which I hadn't found all of yet, the coverage became almost complete. California, Nevada, Utah, Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, every survivor community in the region within range of the stabilizing resonance, at the cost of, conservatively, 600 people. 600 anchor population members who would be consumed by the convergence event. I stared at the map for a long time. 600 names that didn't exist on any document as sacrifices. But that's what they were.
3 weeks out, I picked up a radio broadcast. Low power FM, the kind that runs off a car battery. I'd been scanning since leaving Caldera, a habit from the road. This one was different. Not a survivor camp's repeating information loop. Not static. A voice. Female. Calm. Professional. Reading what sounded like operational status reports. Site designations. CV7, CV2, CV4. Calibration averages. Population counts. Event horizon projections. It was someone monitoring the sites. Someone who had access to the same data Eleanor had been tracking, but from outside any single location. A coordination layer. I pulled off the road and sat and listened and recorded everything. The broadcast lasted 11 minutes and then cut to static. But in those 11 minutes, I got 2 things I hadn't had before. A broadcast frequency that I could try to triangulate, and confirmation that Eleanor wasn't the only one still running this program. Someone else was watching. Someone who had survived the collapse in a way that let them maintain oversight of 11 sites across the Southwest. I spent a week triangulating. It wasn't precise. I had a handheld direction-finding antenna I'd salvaged from a defunct search and rescue truck outside Flagstaff, and the broadcasts came only every 3 days, approximately 11 minutes each. But by the 4th broadcast, I had a rough bearing. And by the 6th, I had 2 bearings that crossed. The intersection was in the Mojave. Specifically, a location in the eastern Mojave that my road atlas showed as Kelso, a small railroad depot town that had been essentially abandoned since the 1980s, which meant it was perfect for someone who didn't want to be found. I drove toward Kelso, and I thought about what I was going to find there. Not another anchor population. Someone outside the signal, outside the communities, watching the whole system. Someone who might be the only other person who knew what all 11 sites were building toward, and whether they could be stopped. The Kelso Depot was still standing, a mission revival building from the 1920s, white stucco with a red tile roof, improbably intact. Behind it, a cluster of railroad maintenance structures, and further back, a grouping of military surplus trailers that were definitely not original to the site. No power grid, no water tower, no sodium lamps, but a compact solar array behind the trailers and a satellite uplink dish that was worth more than my truck. I parked on the road and watched for an hour. One person moved in and out of the trailers. Female, early 50s, moving with the efficiency of someone who'd been living alone for a long time. When I finally walked up, she watched me come the whole way without moving or reaching for anything. When I got close enough, she said, "Took you longer than I expected." I stopped. "Were you expecting me?" "After you left Caldera," she said, "Eleanor called." She paused. "I'm Dr. Priya Nair. I built the system." She was nothing like Eleanor. Eleanor carried her decisions like architecture, built around her, visible in every room of her. Priya carried hers like weather, variable, atmospheric, the kind that changed the mood without drawing attention to itself. She made tea, actual tea,
She had a greenhouse, she showed me later. A small one, mostly herbs. She sat across from me in the trailer that served as her office and command center, and I told her everything. Everything I'd told Eleanor, and everything Eleanor had told me, and everything since. She listened without expression. Not coldly, just completely. When I finished, she said, "The convergence event isn't designed to kill the anchor populations." I stopped. Eleanor's models use parameters I gave her 10 years ago, Priya said. The updated protocol revised the terminal threshold. She looked at me steadily. At full calibration, the anchor population doesn't die. It transforms.
Transforms how? I said. She was careful about this. She used the word resonance consciousness and immediately acknowledged it sounded like something from a pamphlet. The science, she said, was real, measurable, repeatable, documented across the 4 years of the program's pre-collapse trials. At full collective calibration, exposure to the convergence event produced a permanent neurological reorganization in surviving subjects. Not death, expansion. The calibrated population retained full individual consciousness, but gained a persistent low-level awareness of the emotional and psychological states of others within signal range. Empathy amplification, she said, on a neurological level. Permanent. I stared at her. "You're turning people into something else," I said. "We're guiding them towards something they can already be," she said. "The capacity is human. The signal just develops it." "Without consent," I said. She closed her eyes briefly. "Eleanor didn't tell you what the transformation does to the anchor population's capacity for violence," she said. "It eliminates it. Permanently. The post-convergence communities we modeled don't have conflict. They don't have war." She looked at me. "They survive." I asked her about the 2 people who died near Caldera. Walking away at night, drawn the wrong direction. She was quiet for a moment. "The behavioral lock occurs at approximately 0.6 calibration, she said. Subjects in that range experience compulsion toward the signal source if they attempt to move beyond the signal's range at night, when the mountain frequency peaks. And if they fight it? Cardiac events, she said. 2 documented. Both were attempting to leave the range rapidly." I sat with that. "So people who try to escape the signal can die trying?" I said. "Yes." "That's not a side effect. That's a trap." She didn't argue. "Eleanor didn't tell you about the cardiac risk in her disclosure," she said. It was the first time she'd put any inflection into something about Eleanor. "She knew?" "Yes." "Why didn't she tell them? Why didn't she tell the population they couldn't leave above 0.6 without risking death?" Priya looked at her tea. "Because they would have tried to leave before 0.6, she said, and the program required them to stay. I spent the night in Priya's spare trailer and lay awake until 3 a.m., thinking about what I believed. Not what I knew, what I believed. They were different things, and I'd learned to treat them differently. I believed Priya was telling the truth about the transformation, or at least that she believed it herself. I believed Eleanor genuinely thought the math was sound. I believed Warren and Delia and the boy in his winter coat had survived the collapse because of the signal, and that without it, they'd likely have died in the chaos of the first year. I believed that the cardiac risk was a deliberate concealment, not an oversight. I believed that 43 people had never been given a choice, and that this was wrong, regardless of the outcome. And I believed, almost against my will, that a version of the world Priya described, where post-collapse communities couldn't kill each other, was something I desperately, privately wanted to exist. I lay there wanting both things at once, and not finding a way to reconcile them. In the morning, Priya offered me coffee, and then offered me a choice. She'd been more direct than Eleanor. Less performance, more precision. You can leave, she said. You have documentation. You could find a pre-collapse authority structure that still functions enough to care about this. Military remnant, regional government, whatever remains. You can try to dismantle the program. She paused. Or you can work with me. Help me verify that the sites are on track, that the calibration is proceeding safely, that the cardiac risk protocol gets properly communicated to populations who are below 0.6 and can still leave safely if they choose. A middle option, I said. A humane option, she said. The program will complete regardless. Eleanor will make sure of that. She's committed past the point of reversal. The only question is whether it completes with someone ensuring the safeguards that Eleanor bypassed. I looked at my coffee. Or I stop it. She looked back at me steadily. The winter lasts longer every year, she said quietly, and the survivors are killing each other at a rate that will leave none of them by spring.
I drove back to Caldera. I don't know if it was the right decision. I still don't know. I drove because Delia was there and couldn't leave without me. And I needed to look at the people in that town and make a decision about them with my own eyes, not from a desert trailer 300 miles away. I drove north through the Mojave and back into Nevada and came over the ridge at dusk, exactly the way I'd come the first time. The town glowing below me in the early dark, the water tower at the north end, the hum of electricity. I sat on the ridge for a while. Then I coasted down without my headlights on. Different this time. Not because I was afraid of being seen. Because I needed the few minutes of quiet descent to be sure of myself. When I pulled onto Harlan Avenue and stepped out of the truck, Marcus was on the sidewalk with his arms at his sides. "Eleanor's expecting you," he said. "I know," I said.
Eleanor's face when I walked into the community center didn't say, "I told you so." It didn't say anything triumphant. It said something closer to relief. She was alone. She'd sent everyone else away. We sat across from each other at the table, same chairs as before, and I told her I'd spoken to Priya. She nodded. She'd known I would. "Did she convince you?" she said. "She told me the cardiac protocol," I said. "The risk you didn't disclose." She didn't look away. "Yes." "Why?" "I've already explained." "Eleanor, you owe me the real reason." She was quiet for a moment. "Because I knew it would stop them from staying," she said. "And the program required them to stay. And the program—" She stopped. "The program is the only thing that matters," I said. It came out harder than I intended, but she took it without flinching. "In 20 years," she said, "post-convergence communities will be studied as the first stable post-collapse civilizations in human history. I know what I'm trading for that." She paused. "I've never hidden that from myself." I went to Delia's that evening. She answered the door before I knocked. She'd seen my truck on the street. We sat in her kitchen, and I told her everything. Priya, the transformation, the cardiac risk, the convergence event's actual outcome. I gave her everything I had, held nothing back. When I finished, I told her. She was at 0.71. Below the 0.6 cardiac threshold for some subjects, possibly above it for others. Priya had said the threshold wasn't precise. She might be able to leave. Or she might not. The only way to know was to try, carefully, during daylight, moving slowly, monitoring her physiological responses. I could drive her to the edge of the signal range and be ready to bring her back immediately if she showed any signs of cardiac distress. She looked at her hands for a long time. "And if I can get out," she said, "then I drive you away from here," I said, "as far as you want to go." She was quiet. "And if I can't?" "Then you stay," I said. "But you know everything, and you can tell the others." She nodded slowly. "Let's try," she said. We left at dawn. I drove south on Harlan, Delia in the passenger seat, her hands in her lap, watching the buildings pass. At the edge of town, she said, "Slower." I slowed to a crawl. We crossed the town boundary, An invisible line between the last building and open desert. Delia exhaled. Okay, she said. Keep going. I drove another 200 meters. Her hands gripped her knees. I feel... She stopped. Her breathing changed. Not panic, but an involuntary tightening. Heart rate? I said. Fast, she said. Not dangerous, but pulling me, like a current. I drove another 100 meters. She made a sound. Low, involuntary. Stop, she said. I stopped. She sat very still for 30 seconds. Her face had gone pale. Then she said, I can push through it, I think, if I want to badly enough. I watched her face. Do you want to? I said. She was quiet for a long time. She looked back toward the town in the side mirror. She looked forward at the empty road. Yes, she said. Go.
She made it. 3 miles out, something released. She described it as a wave breaking. Her hands unclenched, her breathing normalized. She turned to look back, and Caldera was just a glow on the horizon. And she cried. Once, briefly, with her face toward the window. I drove. I didn't say anything. Some things don't need commentary. At 5 miles, she seemed fully herself. Sharp, present, the fear in her eyes replaced by something else. Grief, maybe, for what she was leaving. Or relief that she could. Probably both. Where are we going? She said. East, I said. I know some people outside Santa Fe. Survivor camp. Decent people. I've stayed there before. She nodded. And then? And then I go back to mapping, I said. And you? Whatever you want. She looked at the road ahead for a long time. I want to help, she said. I glanced at her. Help how? The people at below 0.6 calibration, she said. The ones who can still leave safely. Someone should tell them what they're staying in. Someone should give them the choice they were never given. I kept my eyes on the road. All right, I said.
Over the next 3 weeks, we mapped 4 more sites. Delia was good at this. Better than me, actually. She'd lived inside one of these communities. She understood the social architecture. She could read the signs faster and more accurately. We found the sites in Colorado, Utah, and 2 more in Nevada. Each one the same pattern. Each population different. Some larger, some smaller, some more recently established, some further along in calibration. We documented from outside, photographed the facilities, recorded the nighttime processions, noted the population metrics we could estimate from behavioral observation. 11 sites total. We found all of them. I marked each one on the paper map with a circle and a number and Delia's estimated calibration level. When the map was complete, I spread it on the hood of the truck, and we stood and looked at it for a long time without speaking. It was, I thought, the most important and most terrible map I'd ever made. A map of choices made for people who'd never been asked. We had long drives and long nights, and a lot of time to talk about what to do with what we had. Delia was more decisive than me. She wanted to go to each site and find the people below 0.6, the newcomers, the recent arrivals, the ones who could still choose, and tell them the truth, the full truth, what the signal was, what it did, what the convergence event would bring, what transformation meant. Give them the information. Let them decide. I kept coming back to the other side of it. If we did that and people left, if we pulled enough people out of the anchor populations, what happened to the convergence? Did it fail? Did a partial convergence leave people permanently half-calibrated, neither normal nor transformed? Did it cause the cardiac events at scale? Did it save nobody? I don't know, I said. But is that a reason not to give people the choice? She said. I looked at the road. No, I said, but it's a reason to be very careful about how we do it. She was quiet for a moment.
You talk to Priya, she said. She has those answers. I had my phone out before she finished the sentence.
I drove back to Kelso. Priya had the answer I needed. Partial convergence produced a stable but incomplete resonance. Not the full 300-mile propagation, but a narrower range. Each fully calibrated member of the anchor population contributed to the event. Those who left didn't reduce the power of those who stayed. They simply narrowed the final range. The transformation would still occur. The surviving calibrated population would still transform. The area of stabilization would be smaller, perhaps 50 miles instead of 300, which meant Caldera's event would stabilize its immediate region, not the full southwest, which meant other communities in the outer range, places we'd never visit, survivor camps we'd never know, would not receive the stabilizing resonance. That was the cost of giving people the choice to leave. A smaller circle of peace, bought with individual freedom. That's an acceptable trade, Delia said, before I'd finished saying it. I agreed. We drove back to Caldera a second time, Delia and I, together. This time we drove in without hesitation, in daylight, at a reasonable speed, with the truck's headlights on. Marcus was at the community center steps when we arrived, and this time he didn't move to intercept us. He just watched. We went straight to the community center and posted a note on the door. Meeting tonight. Every resident. Mandatory. We put it up and walked away. Warren found us at the diner 20 minutes later. He sat down across from us and looked at Delia's face for a long moment, reading something in it, the way calibrated people seem to read each other, the emotional weather that the signal made legible. You're going to tell them, he said. Not a question. Everything, I said. He was quiet. Eleanor will try to stop you, he said. I know. He looked at his hands. Then he looked at me. I won't, he said. Eleanor came to the community center that evening and saw the chairs in the circle and the note on the door and the faces of people who'd already been told there was something to hear. She stopped in the doorway and looked at me. I looked back. I said, they deserve to know. She stood there for a long moment. Something moved across her face. Anger, grief, the specific anguish of someone watching their life's work shift into a shape they didn't design. Then she walked in. She sat in the circle. She didn't try to stop me. I told the room everything, every word of it. I used Delia's folder and my own photographs, and I was as precise and careful as I could be. I watched their faces. Shock, confusion, grief, anger. That came later, directed mostly at Eleanor, who sat and took it. One woman wept. The boy's mother pressed him against her, covering his ears, and then stopped because he was too old for that, and she knew it, and her face collapsed. I didn't look away from any of it. It went for 3 hours. Questions, arguments, silence. Some people raged. Some people went quiet in a way that was harder to watch than the rage. 3 people left the room immediately and walked to their houses and didn't come back. One man accused me of lying completely, and it took Warren and Delia both to produce the evidence and have it sit. Eleanor answered questions when they were directed at her. She didn't apologize. She explained, as clearly as she could, the calculus she'd made. Some people understood it and were still furious. Some people didn't understand it and were just frightened. By the end, every person in the room knew the truth, and every person below 0.6 calibration, 7 people, was offered a choice by me and Delia, privately, at the end. They could leave safely now, before their calibration progressed further. We would help them go. 3 accepted. 4 chose to stay. When I asked the 4 why, the answers were different, but the shape was the same. This place is home now. Whatever happens here, I'll be part of it. We drove the 3 out the next morning. Delia drove the truck. She knew exactly where the physiological pull would be, knew the signs, knew how to pace it. I sat in the back and watched their faces as we crossed the boundary and moved south. One woman named Anna cried quietly. and then stopped. A man in his 30s named Ray looked out the window and didn't say anything for 20 miles, and then said, "Where does a person go now?" I didn't have a good answer. I gave him the best one I could. East. Santa Fe. A camp with decent people and a water source and some resemblance of structure. "It's not Caldera," I said. "Nothing's going to be Caldera," he said. He wasn't wrong. Whatever Caldera was, whatever it had been, whatever it would become after the convergence, it was a specific thing. A town that stayed lit in the dark. A place where 40 people survived against the odds. A place where someone made terrible choices for beautiful reasons, and someone else made the terrible choice of telling the truth about it. He wasn't wrong at all.
I went back to Caldera one last time, alone. Delia waited at a motel we'd found 40 miles south, and I drove north in the evening and parked on Harlan Avenue for the last time. Walked the street. Hardware store, diner, post office, the banner that said "Community First." The lights on, every one of them. The curtains drawn. The hum in the walls. I stood in the middle of the street and listened to it for a long time. At 2 a.m., the footsteps came. 38 now. 3 had left. 1 was Eleanor, who I'd seen go to bed early. I let the curtain in my mind pull back, and I watched the column move north. Warren at the back. Delia's absence visible as a gap in the line she used to walk in. The boy with his winter coat, which he'd grown into now. They moved out of the lamplight and into the desert and faded into the dark. I watched until the last of them disappeared. Then I got in my truck, and I drove.
I drove south through the Nevada night with the window down and the desert air moving through the cab. It smelled like alkali and sage and the cold that comes after a hot day in high desert. I played the recording of the mountain frequency on my phone and listened to it for a few miles, and then I turned it off. I thought about what would happen when the convergence event fired. Not yet. Priya estimated another 8 to 10 months at current calibration rates. But when it did, 38 people in a Nevada desert town would experience something that had never happened to human beings before. They'd agreed to it now. Most of them. Not all. Eleanor hadn't asked for agreement. But most of the people who'd heard the truth had stayed. They'd chosen it, knowing the cost and the transformation. And somewhere in a radius I couldn't walk off the map, survivors would feel the resonance and stop fighting, stop killing, stop fragmenting. And I wouldn't be there for any of it. I drove south. I felt many things. None of them were simple.
Delia was in the motel when I got back. She'd made coffee on a camp stove she'd found in one of the rooms. The motel had been a small one, 8 rooms, all stocked with the remnants of someone else's interrupted life. She handed me a mug without speaking, which I appreciated. We sat outside on the walkway in the cold Nevada night and drank coffee and didn't talk for a while. At some point, she asked if I was all right. I told her I was functional, which was the honest version of yes. She told me she'd been thinking about what she wanted to do next. She'd been thinking about the 600 people across 11 sites who were below 0.6 calibration and had never been told what they were part of. And about Priya, who had the full site map and the calibration data and the ability to tell us who needed to be reached and when. We could do this, Delia said, systematically, site by site, reach everyone who can still choose. I drank my coffee. The stars were extraordinary over the Nevada desert. I hadn't looked at them in weeks. Yes, I said, we could.
We called it the network, informally. Delia's name, better than anything I'd have come up with. Priya became the 3rd member, fully committed once we'd framed what we were doing as a harm reduction overlay on a program she'd built and couldn't stop. She gave us the site data, all 11 locations, population counts, individual calibration levels for every resident she could verify from the monitoring data. Below 0.6 individuals across all sites, 89 people. 89 people who could still leave safely, who had never been told what they were part of. We spent a week in Kelso with Priya, planning the approach. Delia drafted the script. Not a script exactly, more a framework. How to explain what the signal was, what the convergence would do, what transformation meant, what the cardiac risk was, and what their options were. No agenda, no push in either direction. Just the information. All of it. Given to people who had a right to it.
Mesa Verde, Arizona. 61 people, 12 below .6. We arrived in Delia's car. She'd acquired a second vehicle in the weeks since, an old Subaru that made the truck look young. We went in during daylight, told the truth the same way we'd told it in Caldera, and watched the same sequence unfold. Shock, anger, grief, the slow digestion of something large. 5 of the 12 chose to leave. 7 chose to stay. We drove the 5 out personally to a camp we'd identified 40 miles south and got them settled. 3 days of work. Then we moved to the next site. Each one slightly different. Different people, different responses, different numbers choosing to go and to stay. But the same fundamental sequence. The truth, the choice, the leaving, the staying. By the 4th site, Delia could tell within 10 minutes of walking into a room which residents were below threshold and how close to the .6 line they were. The signal changed something in how they held themselves, she said. She could feel it now from the outside, looking in.
8 months after I first crested that ridge and saw Caldera glowing in the Nevada dark, we'd visited 9 of the 11 sites. Of the total 89 people below .6 threshold, 41 had chosen to leave. 48 had chosen to stay. I kept a tally in my notebook. Not because the numbers resolved anything, but because the people deserved to be counted. Each one a name, a decision, a face. The 41 who left were scattered across survivor camps in 5 states, living whatever version of the post-collapse world existed without signal assistance. Harder, probably, than what they left behind. More uncertain. More dangerous. More human. The 48 who stayed were now fully informed. They knew what the convergence would do, what transformation meant, what the night walks were for, what would come when the calibration reached threshold. They'd chosen it anyway. I didn't understand all of them, but I understood the shape of a meaningful choice, even when I disagreed with it.
Priya called on the radio. She rarely called directly. She monitored and reported, let us work. But this call was different. The calibration average at Caldera had crossed .95. 2 of the 11 sites were close behind. She estimated the convergence event at Caldera would trigger within the next 10 to 14 days. The first one, the test of whether the model was correct, whether 37 people, the current Caldera population, minus Eleanor, who was still at 1.00 and would go first, whether 37 people would transform rather than die, whether the resonance would propagate and stabilize the surrounding region, whether any of it would work the way Priya believed it would. "We're not going to be there," Delia said after I relayed Priya's update. It was evening. We were parked outside a small town in Colorado. The 10th site's work nearly done. "No," I said. "We can't be that close when it fires." She was quiet for a moment. "I hope Warren is all right," she said. I said nothing. I hoped so too. We were in New Mexico when it happened. I know the exact time because Priya's monitoring equipment logged it. 2:14 a.m. Site CV7, Caldera, Nevada. I was asleep, or trying to be, in a camp chair outside a survivor camp outside Taos. At 2:17 a.m., I woke up, not from a sound, from a feeling. A warmth, distant and diffuse, like sunlight felt through a wall, not warming you directly, but making you aware of its presence. I sat up. Around the camp, others were stirring. Not alarmed, just awake. Someone said, "Is everyone okay?" And someone else said yes, and someone else laughed, a soft, surprised laugh. And then it was quiet again. The warmth faded over about 4 minutes, and what was left behind? A stillness.
Not the signal stillness of Caldera's frequency. Something less manufactured, less specific. Just a moment where no one in that camp felt like fighting. I sat in my camp chair until dawn. I recorded nothing. Some things don't need narrating.
Priya's data reached us by radio at dawn. The convergence event had fired at Caldera at 2:14 a.m. Signal propagation, 83 miles radius. Narrower than the maximum design, accounting for the reduced population and the people who'd left. Within that radius, Priya's monitoring equipment showed anomalous readings in every survivor community she had sensors near. Reduced conflict indicators, slower stress response metrics, an unusual period of calm lasting approximately 4 hours that then faded to a baseline shift. Not as dramatic, but permanent. The people in Caldera, she'd received a radio transmission from Warren at 6 a.m. He was alive. He was different. He struggled to describe it, she said. More connected, he'd said. More aware of the people around him. Less afraid. The mountains make sense now, he'd said, which Priya relayed to us without interpretation. Eleanor had survived as well, apparently. The model had been right. 37 people, transformed. 83 miles of survivor communities quietly shifted towards something that might allow them to keep being alive.
I drove east 3 days later. Not because I had a destination. I never have a destination. Not really. But east felt right. More sites to find, maybe, that weren't on Priya's map. More people below threshold who'd never been given a choice. Or maybe just the road and whatever it showed me. And the ongoing fact of being alive in a world that kept finding new ways to be terrible. And occasionally, briefly, in the dark, in a camp chair in New Mexico at 2 a.m., found new ways to be something else. Delia went north. She and Priya were working a coordination angle I didn't fully understand, and didn't need to. She was better at that part than me. We said goodbye the way people do when they've done something together that neither of them can fully explain. A handshake that became something else. A drive away that took longer than it needed to, because you're not quite ready. I drove east through the desert with my window down. The road was broken, and the world was broken. And somewhere in Nevada, 37 people were waking up to a morning they'd never been able to imagine, changed into something the old world hadn't had words for yet. I drove, I recorded, I kept going. If these stories move something in you, subscribe to Shadow Archives, leave a like so others find Ethan's journey, and stay with us. He's not done. The road goes on.